This afternoon on Face the State, it is a debate over what some call national security, while others say it's discrimination. The growing concern behind two bills Ohio lawmakers want to push through, and the pushback from people who call the Buckeye State home. Plus.
And he gave his life. And that's what's heart-wrenching.
People across the state mourning the loss of a Morrow County sheriff's deputy killed in the line of duty. How complete strangers across the state are paying their respects to a fallen hero. And
all the donors that I've ever talked to said it was the single best thing they ever did in their life.
A father hoping for a miracle as his 8-year-old daughter battles a rare blood disorder. See how the community is now rallying for support. Thanks so much for joining us for Face the State. I'm Angela Ann. Doug is off today. Well, this week, people from around Ohio testified at the State House about two controversial bills. Lawmakers say at issue is national security, but some Ohioans say it is downright discrimination and is bringing hundreds of people to the state capitol. Senate Bill 88 would ban certain foreign nationals from buying properties within 25 miles of critical infrastructure. That includes military bases and airports. It is similar to House Bill 1, which would prohibit a business that is owned or controlled by a U.S. foreign adversary. Now, among those who testified, a 14-year-old girl who had this message for lawmakers.
This downward spiral will not stop at one or two bills. This is about who we choose to be when history is watching in horror. This is about whether we will finally rise to the promise carved in our founding documents. For Ohio, the state I love.
As a father, I am deeply worried about the message this bill sends to my children. They are both under 3 years old, and I want them to grow up in a community that values diversity, not one that fears it.
Now, those who testified say they will be back at the State House when House Bill 1 goes before lawmakers again in early June. 10 TV's Tara Jabor spoke with people on both sides as this controversy starts to gain attention.
People showed up at the State House to protest the proposed legislation. Vincent Wang was among them. He's the chair of the Asian American Coalition of Ohio and says the bill would interfere with people's rights.
Strip people from the freedom to live and work freely, contribute to the society here. This agenda is going to push the immigrants out and cause fear, cause hatred among the community.
Hung Mei Lee with the Ohio Chinese American Council says the bills target immigrants, even those who have lived in Ohio for years.
Many of us have lived, worked, and contributed to the economy in this country for generations. We are not perpetual foreigners. Ohio is our home.
Representative Angela King is a sponsor of House Bill 1. She says the bill is about national security.
To keep our power stations, water treatment facilities, gas pipelines, rails, and military installations safe from surveillance and espionage.
I asked the representative what she would say to those in the Asian community who feel this bill targets them.
It's about citizenship, not race or national origin. This also applies to Cuba, North Korea, Iran, and Russia.
Not all representatives support the bill. Rep. Anita Samani says she hopes to get rid of House Bill 1.
This bill would only serve to increase hate and prejudice against one group without any true benefit to us here in Ohio.
Tara Jabor, 10 TV News.
Now, just days before that hearing got underway, an amendment to Senate Bill 88 was accepted by the committee. It would grandfather in anyone who currently owns property that could potentially be affected by this bill if it passes. Now, in just 10 minutes, we will hear from Ohio Representative Anita Samani, who oversees District 8, encompassing Worthington and parts of Dublin and Columbus. We'll get her perspective on why representation matters at the state level when it comes to these types of proposals. Well, this week, Governor Mike DeWine and the Ohio Department of Public Safety are making changes on the state level when it comes to missing persons investigations. After meeting with advocates and experts for months, the governor's office published new recommendations on how law enforcement should respond as families frantically try to bring their missing loved ones home. So the new recommendations urge the Attorney General's office to develop advanced training for all investigators and dispatchers. It's 18 points and in all developed after 6 group sessions focused on better communication between law enforcement and families. It also includes improved training, legal reforms, and enhanced information sharing at every level. Now, another recommendation is presenting legislation that would allow law enforcement to have easier access to social media.
One of the tools that law enforcement officers use to gather that information is a search warrant for records pertaining to phone records or internet records or social media records. So many people, again, we all these days carry our lives on our phone and with us and through social media. And a lot of time that information has clues about where we're at. And if law enforcement can quickly or easily access that information, again, they can bring resolution to these families.
The governor formed this working group back in January to study the complex challenges of missing persons cases, from investigative delays to the emotional toll on families. Well, also this week, one Ohio agency was recognized for its effort in saving lives. On Thursday, the Children's Hospital's Solutions for Patient Safety announced it has saved more than 30,000 children from serious harm since it was created. It also saved more than $668 million in health care costs. The agency does not just help Ohio families, it's actually an international effort, and it has spread to more than 150 hospitals in North America.
Ohio is known for innovation, for its entrepreneurial spirit, and this effort demonstrates how our children's hospitals really came together.
It's called SPS, which was formed when Ohio's children's hospitals came together to transparently share data and also work together. Well, Senate Republicans appear poised to make some big changes to President Trump's budget bill that narrowly passed the House. Speaker Mike Johnson is now urging the Senate to make as few changes as possible to a bill that would slash Medicaid funding to help pay for the president's tax reforms. Now, earlier this week, DOJ Director Elon Musk announced that he was leaving his position, and this came just 2 days after comments he made on the bill on CBS Sunday Morning.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOJ team is doing.
Later this week, reporters asked President Trump about Elon Musk's comments.
I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill. But the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing.
Ohio Republican Senator John Husted was in Columbus this past week, and we asked him if he supports the bill as it's written today. He told us it's complicated.
I want to provide tax relief. I want to preserve the services that people depend on, like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We want to preserve those for the people who are truly in need. But we also have a responsibility to move towards a balanced budget that will put America on a sustainable path. Figuring out how you put all those things together, that's going to be our challenge, and I'm excited to get started.
Republicans are hoping to get the bill to the president's desk by the 4th of July. Well, this week it has certainly been an emotional week for all those involved in law enforcement. 2 Mifflin Township police officers in Central Ohio are now recovering after they were shot by a suspect during a traffic stop. And just days before that shooting, 31-year-old Morrow County Sheriff's Deputy Daniel Scherer was shot and killed responding to a domestic violence call. Now, the FOP president, Brian Steele, says his first priority is making sure those 2 officers in Mifflin recover, but he also brought up this concern.
When the dust settles, the third thing we're going to do to FOP is find out why was this violent offender back on our streets.
So the suspect he's referring to is Devontae Dixon, and 10 TV went through his criminal history. He has been convicted of several violent crimes in just the last 3 years. The question now is, why was he released back into the community? 10 TV investigative reporter Rochelle Aline took those policy concerns to Franklin County leaders.
Aggravated battery and 2 weapons charges. Those are the 3 felonies Devontae Dixon pled guilty to in 2024. But instead of jail time, Dixon was offered a deal. The Franklin County Prosecutor's Office dropped 4 other charges, and Dixon was placed into community control. 10 TV tracked down someone close to Dixon to learn more about his past, but they chose not to speak to us. We were able to speak to local attorney Sam Szymanski. He says community control is used to rehabilitate people, and he called Dixon's reoffense a rarity.
I'm guessing and gleaning from this record that this gentleman pled guilty and was put into a rehabilitation program, likely because he has a drug problem, and was given a chance at community control, which is supervision, which is way more effective than sticking somebody in prison and having them come out even harder than they are when they go in.
And he said this of the judge who accepted that plea deal.
We elect judges to make tough decisions every day. And to those folks in the audience who think that's an easy job, they're wrong.
But tonight, someone who is questioning that decision is the president of the local police union.
We're asking no stone is going to be unturned too. We're going to want to find out every single person that was involved in that decision, including the prosecutor's office, because we believe they also agreed to this joint resolution to give community control.
Now, Rochelle Aline also contacted the prosecutor's office for comment about this, and they released the following statement saying, quote, "We live in Ohio, a state in which legislators have made it very easy to access guns without a license. Until laws around guns and gun safety change, it will remain too easy for firearms to land in the wrong hands," end quote. Now, just one day before that shooting, hundreds of people paid respects to Deputy Scherer as his body was moved from the coroner's office to the funeral home in Mount Gilead. Dozens of police and fire departments lined the streets in several counties and honored Scherer with a raised flag between fire trucks. You could also see tears flowing as the cruisers passed underneath. Many kids we saw holding flowers, others holding up flags. Most people we talked to say they never met Deputy Scherer, but they wanted to be there to show support.
Nothing is ever going to bring your son back, but your community loves and supports you and thanks him for his service, and we just truly sorry for their loss. And there's no words, there's no money, there's no food, there's nothing that will make it feel better. It's just, it's like a circle, you know, we just stand around them.
So now the Delaware County Sheriff's Office is taking over this investigation with assistance from the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation. Meantime, Attorney General Dave Yost reacting to the news of the fallen deputy, saying in part, quote, "My heart is torn by the loss of yet another Ohio law enforcement officer who paid the ultimate sacrifice while protecting his community. We are forever indebted to those who lay down their lives for others." Now, Yost is referring to the death of another sheriff's deputy earlier this month. Larry Henderson was directing traffic during commencement at the University of Cincinnati when a man rammed a car into him. The driver, Rodney Hinton Jr., is now facing an aggravated murder charge. This week, Governor Mike DeWine also sharing his support with the Morrow County community and also those in Mifflin Township.
This is a reminder for all of us how much we owe the men and women who risk their lives every single day. When they leave home in the morning, they don't know, frankly, what they're going to encounter, whether it's a domestic violence call, whether it's a stop where the person pulls a gun on them and shoots them. You know, they're the ones who run towards trouble, when the rest of us try to stay away from the trouble.
Well, coming up in just 7 minutes now on Face the State, we have a story about a father's hopeful fight to save his daughter. It's a rare disease grabbing hold of this 8-year-old girl. We'll show you how the community is rallying together to end the search for a donor. And as we wrap up Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, there is a growing concern over the lack of diversity and getting more seats at the table. In just 2 minutes, we will speak with House Representative Dr. Anita Samani. As we wrap up Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we are going to turn the focus now to something affecting nearly 400,000 Asian Americans here in Ohio. We are talking about representation at the Ohio State House when it comes to our elected leaders. There is a growing concern over the lack of diversity and getting more seats at the table. So joining us today is House Representative Dr. Anita Samani. We are so glad to have you here with us on Face the State. Thank you. So let's talk about this. You represent the 8th House District, which includes part of Dublin. And for people who don't know, Dublin does have the highest Asian American population in the entire state. So this is really kind of fascinating because you represent that portion of people who sometimes feel like they don't have a voice.
Right. Well, Dublin is about 22 to 25% Asian, depending on how you categorize that. But it's interesting, you know, I've been in that area for 30 years and just seen it grow, the diversity grow in the area. So it's a big honor to be able to represent that area.
And you were first elected in 2022. So let's talk about your first term, because what are you seeing now at the State House, 3 years now since coming into office, in terms of having those diverse voices?
Yeah, so there's still a lack of diversity when you look around. You know, the Democratic Caucus has a very diverse group of representatives, of people that work in the House when it comes to women, ethnic minorities groups. So it is very diverse on our side, but on the other side, we have very little diversity. I think the other thing in my first term, Rep. Golonsky and I actually introduced HB 25, which would have funded the Asian American Committee, you know, that was previously a volunteer commission that was started by Governor Ted Strickland, continued by Governor Voinovich, and then sort of lost steam, fell apart in 2019.
So let's talk about that, because a lot of people don't know there was that Ohio Asian Advisory Council. It was volunteer created back in 2010 under former Democratic Governor Ted Strickland. Like you said, Governor Kasich then renewed it, and up until 2019 when it just kind of went away under Governor DeWine's leadership. So we actually asked Governor DeWine to explain where he stands on this topic. Here's what he told us. He said the vast majority of Ohio's boards and commissions are created by a statute passed by the Ohio General Assembly. His office also said we are monitoring any developments that may arise through this legislative process. So you mentioned you tried to do that. There was an effort legislatively. But really, over the years, the big question people have been asking is, Asians are the only ethnic group in Ohio without a state-level commission.
Right.
And the question is why? Or why not? Like, what's going on?
Well, I think obviously representation matters, right? You know, we've had a few Asian minorities in the House. I didn't realize this, but Cliff Rosenberger is from Korea, also one of the Asians that served in government. But when you look at it, there's only been a handful. And so we really do need to look at re-establishing that, putting funding behind it. We had asked for an appropriation of close to about $500 million. No, that's not right.
But there was some appropriation.
500,000, so $500,000.
Yeah.
Those zeros get confusing.
It does. But will you be trying to push another type of legislation through?
I would like to see, you know, that bill addressed kind of what the commission should be made of, having state representation, so a representative from both the majority and the minority party, and then also having voting members that could be appointed by the governor, could apply just as the other commissions do. So I think it's really critical, especially as we're seeing the Asian population in Ohio grow. I think we need to have that representation. When you think about some of the anti-immigrant, anti-Asian bills that are starting to kind of run across the country.
And you talk about the Asian population growing. People may not realize this either. Reynoldsburg has the largest Bhutanese, Nepalese refugee population in the country, 30,000. And so when you look at that, is this a start? Because they do have their first elected city council member. But how do we get more representation than on board?
Well, I think we reintroduced the bill, which I have the legislative language for. We really try to emphasize to the majority party how critical it is when you think about health disparities, you think about the issues facing Asians. It is really important to have that commission established and to carry it on with funding so that we have good representation.
And have that support too from not just the Asian population, but really everyone as a whole, right? To say you can have a voice and here's how to do it. You're paving the way. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. I feel like I have paved the way in a lot of different ways, in my medical career.
Yes.
Women were a minority in medicine 30 plus years ago, and now it's completely flipped. There are more women medical students now than there ever were.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Anita Samani joining us here on Face the State. Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, still to come in just 2 minutes, a father's fight to save his little girl. She's a third grader at Columbus Academy and desperately needs a bone marrow transplant. Hear her father's urgent plea coming up next.
Tomorrow morning, let us help you get the day started. I'm Tracy Townsend. Join me, Jay Plyburn, and the rest of the 10 TV This Morning team. Meteorologist Meredith Garfalo will let you know if you need the shades or an umbrella, and Brianna Albazu will get you around this pesky morning accidents. Join us for 10 TV News This Morning at 6 a.m.
We end this afternoon with an update on a story we first brought you earlier this month. A desperate plea from the father of 8-year-old Kaya Jolka. She's a third grader at Columbus Academy and in urgent need of a bone marrow transplant to save her life. Now, Kaya was diagnosed on Easter with a rare disease where her body just stops producing blood cells. 10 TV's Kristen McFarland shows us how the family is fighting to find a life-saving match.
They say time heals all wounds. But for 8-year-old Kaya Jolka and her family, time is a thief.
You're almost grieving, right? You have lost what you saw as your child's life in a way.
4 weeks ago, the little girl was diagnosed with a rare disorder, severe aplastic anemia. Her doctors didn't waste any time looking for a bone marrow donor.
Out of all the 40 or 50 million people that they searched that are in the registry, currently, I believe there was 2 of them that were a match, and neither has responded yet.
Kaya's father says as they wait for a response, maybe days, maybe weeks, his daughter's condition continues to get worse.
Show me your one bruise you got just a couple days ago. So this comes up from nothing. This is just taking a shower. All of this happens all over the body.
And instead of spending her time at school and playing outside, Kaya stays home, counting the days between transfusions.
I was really sad because I was just about to have a big lacrosse game, but then we had to go to the hospital, so I had to miss it.
The family is holding out hope that their time will come, but Kaya's search for a life-saving match is made even harder because there aren't enough diverse donors.
If a patient is of a Caucasian descent, especially Western European, we have about a 75% chance of being able to find a donor for. For folks who are of African or Asian descent, that chance is much lower.
Her family urging people to get tested now as the clock is ticking.
All the donors that I've ever talked to said it was the single best thing they ever did in their life.
Thank you, Kristen, for bringing us Kaya's story. Now, if you want to learn more on how you can possibly be the match, just go to 10tv.com and click on feature links. You'll see how easy it is to get registered as a donor and get tested. Well, thank you for joining me for Face the State this week. I'm Angela Ann. Doug Petcash will be back next Sunday at 11:30.